I'm Mari Silby with Light Reading here at the Big Communications event in Austin with Ravi Ravindra, Principal Researcher at Huawei. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
We're here to talk about the ICN architecture. So let's start. Tell us what ICN is.
Sure. ICN stands for Information-centric Networking. So it's a new network architecture that addresses a lot of the shortcomings that currently exist in IP network architecture in terms of lack of support for multicasting or mobility or caching and so on and so forth. Which are all fundamental aspects that is desired by applications, right? So ICN offers this as part of the network itself. And fundamentally, this allows you to deliver services in a more efficient manner.
Okay. You mentioned, we were talking earlier, you mentioned content in particular. Is this based around some of the sort of multimedia applications as well? If there's some of the
so ICN itself places itself as a kind of a narrow waist. So it's just like IP. So just like you could have any kind of heterogeneous applications on top of IP, you could have all kinds of applications realized on top of ICN too. So in the basic difference from IP to ICN is that IP was mostly optimized around connecting hosts, that is PCs, and ICN fundamentally optimizes itself around distributing content, but at the same time offering a lot of features like mobility, multicasting, in-network computing, and this fundamentally allows you to deliver services very efficiently.
So what are you demonstrating? What is Huawei demonstrating here at BCE?
So basically we are, so this is ICN is being presented in the context of network slicing and 5G. So within the, so what it says is that network slicing fundamentally says that if you have a generalized pool of resources, you could basically carve out different networks with different heterogeneous capabilities on top of it. So what we are saying here is that ICN could be one of the slices on top of a network slicing framework, and so that's one feature. The other feature is that of ICN service orchestration itself. So just like you could have we could realize an orchestration framework that drives networks with services on the top. Here we are showing a ICN service orchestrator with ICN services on the top that can fundamentally program the ICN resources the way it wants to. In addition to, we are also showing features like seamless mobility, mobility as a service. And what we are showing as an application is a real-time audio-video conferencing. Something like video on demand is a very fundamental basic application for ICN. So it can deliver both real-time and non-real-time content.
Right. And when you're talking to customers specifically, how do you present the value proposition? You talked a little bit about some of the initial applications, but how do you present the value proposition if you're talking to somebody who might eventually buy this as a commercial platform?
So if you look at the trend in the industry is to make networking more service-centric, and that's fundamentally happening with SDN, software-defined networking, NFV, edge computing. But fundamentally, all this service-centric aspect is being enabled, assuming that over the same IP technology that we know today. And IP fundamentally offers you very kind of crude semantics to do any kind of service-centric networking. So in contrast, ICN does it in a much kind of cleaner, in a more comprehensive manner. ICN offers you kind of abstractions like name-based abstractions that fundamentally is what applications also talk at in their level. And in addition to that, it also offers you a lot of features, as I said, about in-network caching, mobility, computing. And this fundamentally leads to a lot of bandwidth saving in the network, allows you to realize more flatter network architectures. It allows you to place computing anywhere in the network. So it's very good for even things like low latency applications.
Yeah. And is this you're part of a lab? So what is the commercial timeline looking like for this, and who's supporting it? You know, what's the ecosystem look like?
So right now, ICN is being pursued as part of the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force. So within IETF, there's an IRTF, the Research Task Force of IETF, and so within that, there's a working group called as a research group called as ICNRG, and that's basically a multi-vendor, has a multi-vendor participation. In addition to that, from an operator's perspective, there is ITU and ATIS who have been looking at this and analyzing this technology. So right now, so it's basically coming from the research, transitioning from the research into the industry. That's a phase of ICN right now. And then you also have a big community, a research community around ICN with that works with open source code base. And there are two popular protocols that is known in the ICN, which is content-centric networking and named data networking. And that's where people are building a lot of applications, and also that's again with a lot of vendor participation. Right. So that's the state of ICN, where we are still, it's kind of a phase where we're moving from the research to the industry right now.
Right. And so it's not, it sounds like it's not happening in a vacuum. There's quite a bit of support and quite an ecosystem around it.
It is, yeah. I mean, I said there is a strong academia research aspect of it. Then there's the research labs within industry looking at it, and as I said, we are also taking it to standard bodies. We participate with ITU, ITIS, IETF, and all. So there's a lot of activities happening around ICN right now.
Well, we look forward to seeing some of the applications here at BCE.
Sure, nice. I'm sure, do drop by a booth, and we can probably show you something that excites everybody. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary.